Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here at Gosnold's Hope Park early this Wednesday morning, September the 11th, for this 12th observance of a day of remembrance and hope. We are deeply honored by your presence, and we are all honored by the presence of these servicemen and women arrayed in front of you. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, sailors, airmen, and Coast Guardmen, present before you today. They are our nation's finest, and they have come today to honor their fallen comrades, to read their names beside the trees of hope. Would you please show them your appreciation? Thank you all. Thank you. We cannot forget what happened on this date 12 years ago. Each of us has his or own vivid memories of the scenes of horror that day. A timeline of the events on September the 11th, 2001 is in your program. At 8:46 this morning, no matter what we are doing or who is speaking, we'll pause and toll the bell and have a moment of reflection. That's the time when American Airlines Flight 11 hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center, the first event in a tragic sequence of events that day. The bell will actually toll a total of 6 times, symbolic of the 6 major events as reflected in the timeline. Even as we remember the terror and our reactions to the events of that day, we should also remember and focus on the good we saw. So many Americans rushing to help and giving their lives for their fellow man. We remember that day, and we hope for a brighter tomorrow. Today, we continue this tradition, which began December the 11th, 2001. And we are deeply indebted to the Honorable Angela Lee Leary, former Hampton City Councilwoman, whose vision and drive led to this tradition. A short history of this commemoration is included in the program. We're expecting Angela and Tom this morning, and I don't know what's kept them, so keep them in your prayers, and we thank both of them. This morning, we ask, we invite, we don't plead, but we encourage each of you, if you are able, to join with your fellow citizens as we stand beside the trees of hope planted by our city back to your left front in the soils of justice, and read aloud the names of all those who died in the September 11th attacks. These names are on the beautiful flag to the right rear that the city has purchased, and we invite you to look at that after the ceremony, and they are all there. All those who died on 9/11. One of those names is Mrs. Sandra Murray White, a Department of the Army civilian, wife of an Army colonel, and the daughter of 2 citizens of Hampton, Aaron and Gloria Murray. Gloria and her cousin Katie, correct, are with us this morning. Might I ask you, Mrs. Murray, at this time, and Katie, to please rise and be recognized. At this time, Brigadier General Cedric T. Wins, Director of the Requirements Integration Directorate, Army Capabilities Integration Center, U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command, Fort Eustis, will pay respects to Mrs. Murray and to Katie on behalf of our nation. Then Lieutenant Colonel Pete Fairchild will present them with a Hampton Military Affairs coin, and Mrs. Peggy Mertz of the Hampton Military Affairs Committee will present them each with a rose. And by the way, these roses this morning have been provided by Flowers by Jeff. Thank you, Mrs. Murray and Katie. We remember your sacrifice, and please be seated. Thank you, sir. On this date, 12 years ago, we watched hundreds of American heroes, emergency responders, firemen, policemen, EMTs, who rushed not away from, but into harm's way when they saw fellow Americans in need. Many gave their lives. We will read their names today. And we will also recognize Hampton's own emergency responders who willingly place their lives on the line daily on our behalf. And today, beside the trees of hope, we will read the names of more than 6,900 service members who have given their lives while serving in the wars within Iraq and Afghanistan. They are not forgotten. In recognition of the sacrifice of the fellow service men and women, today we honor those with ties to our region who have given their lives in war since that date, and their names are listed in your program. By presenting the Military Affairs Committee coins to the representatives of our 5 armed services, we honor not only those who have fought and died in our nation's battles, but all those in uniform who selflessly serve our community and our nation by standing ready at great personal inconvenience and risk to protect our freedom. We thank you all. At this time, I'm going to ask Chaplain Steve West, 633rd Air Base Wing, Langley Air Force Base, to bring us our invocation.
Let's pray. Dear God, we remember before you today those whose lives were taken in the catastrophic events of September 11, 2001. We give thanks to you for the selfless courage that those brave souls that ran into burning buildings and labored in the rubble gave of themselves. May their courage be to us a witness of what is possible when we're guided by love and the dedication to our fellow human beings. We pray today for the continued healing for all those suffering emotional and physical pain from those events and the loss of loved ones. Guide our feet to the way of peace. Bless us as we remember and as we cling to the hope that you give us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. In a moment, I will ask you to rise out of respect for our nation and its flag. And then following the presentation of the colors by the Hampton Sheriff's Office Honor Guard, the Bethel High School Band, under direction of Jerry Lancaster, will play our national anthem. And we tell you that you are free to sing along. Ladies and gentlemen, now please rise for the presentation of the colors and our national anthem. And please render appropriate courtesies. Gentlemen, unless in uniform, please remove your headgear. Thank you. Please be seated. And we do thank the Hampton Sheriff's Office Honor Guard for your service and Bethel High School Band for such a beautiful rendition of our national anthem. Thank you for being here today. It is now my privilege to introduce the Honorable Molly Joseph Ward, Mayor of the City of Hampton, who will offer the city's welcome to this ceremony. Welcome, Mayor Ward.
Good morning. On behalf of the citizens of the City of Hampton and the City Council, I want to welcome everyone here today. I want to acknowledge the Bethel High School Band. That was lovely. Thank you guys for being here. There's several distinguished guests that I'd like to recognize. Of course, everyone is distinguished guests, but we have several elected officials and other folks I'd like to recognize. First, we have our Vice Mayor, George Wallace, is here this morning. Honorable Will Moffitt, who's a member of council, is here, and the Honorable Billy Hobbs, who's also a member of City Council, are here. Brigadier General Cedric Wins, Director of the Requirements Integration Directorate at the Army Capabilities Integration Center, U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command. We thank you for being here this morning, General. Mr. Michael Dunphy, Director of the Hampton VA Medical Center. Superintendent Kirsten Talkin-Spalding from Fort Monroe National Monument. Chaplain Steve West, 633rd Air Base Wing, Langley Air Force Base. Thank you for your invocation this morning. First Sergeant Ryan Saddleberg, U.S. Army 149th Seaport Operations Company, Fort Eustis, who's going to be our speaker. And representing our armed forces, we have Command Sergeant Major Jesse Sharp, U.S. Army, Command Sergeant Major, 733rd Mission Support Group, Fort Eustis. Captain Joseph Clemmy, U.S. Marine Corps, Commanding Officer, Bravo Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team Company, Marine Corps Security Force Regiment, Yorktown Naval Weapons Station. Captain Lowell Crow, U.S. Navy, Commanding Officer, Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, Navy Munitions Command, Conus East Division, Yorktown. Colonel John Allen, U.S. Air Force, Commander, 633rd Air Base Wing, Langley Air Force Base. Master Chief James Claren, U.S. Coast Guard, Chief of the Mess, Yorktown Coast Guard Training Center, Yorktown. So thank you all for being here. In addition, we have our own City of Hampton emergency responders, Sheriff B.J. Roberts, Chief David Lehman, and Chief Tommy Townsend. So thank you all for being here this morning.
And thank you, ma'am. At this time, we're going to be blessed by Mrs. Ann Meninga, who will sing for us America the Beautiful. Thank you, Ann.
Beautiful for spacious skies, for
Rob, there we go. Thank you, Ann. That was beautiful. We appreciate that. At this time, we're going to ask the mayor to present Military Affairs Committee coins to representatives of our armed forces and to representatives of our city's emergency responders. She will be assisted by Lieutenant Colonel Pete Fairchild and Peggy Mertz of the Hampton Military Affairs Committee. And we ask that you hold your applause until we have recognized all our armed forces. And we'll follow military protocol by recognizing the oldest service first, beginning with the United States Army. Service representatives, when your name is called, please move forward and join Peggy Mertz, standing before the flags of our nation, our Commonwealth, and our armed services. Representing the United States Army, Command Sergeant Major Jesse L. Sharp, Command Sergeant Major, 733rd Mission Support Group, Fort Eustis, Virginia. Representing the United States Marine Corps, Captain Joseph E. Clemmy, Commanding Officer, Bravo Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team Company, Marine Corps Security Force Regiment, Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, Virginia. And his First Sergeant Albert G. Martinez II, First Sergeant, Bravo Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team Company, Marine Corps Security Detachment, Marine Corps Security Force Regiment, Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, Virginia. And First Sergeant Jermaine L. Jenkins, First Sergeant of Headquarters Company, Marine Corps Security Force Regiment, Williamsburg, Virginia. Representing the United States Navy, Captain Lowell D. Crow, Commanding Officer, Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, Navy Munitions Command, Conus East Division, Yorktown, Virginia. And his Command Master Chief Stephen Seals, Command Master Chief, Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, Navy Munitions Command, Conus East Division, Yorktown, Virginia. And Chief Efren Chedez, who represents the Military Department, Lead Chief of the soon-to-be CVN Gerald R. Ford, U.S. Gerald R. Ford. Thank you, Chief. Representing the United States Air Force, Colonel John Allen, Commander 633rd Air Base Wing, Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. And Chief Master Sergeant Trey King, Command Chief Master Sergeant, 633rd Air Base Wing, Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. Representing the United States Coast Guard, Master Chief James Claren, Chief of the Mess, Yorktown Coast Guard Training Center, Virginia. I ask that you please join in a round of applause for our United States Armed Forces. Mayor Ward will now present Military Affairs Committee coins to representatives of Hampton's emergency responders. And in each case, they are the person in charge of these responders this morning. Representing the City of Hampton Sheriff's Department, Sheriff B.J. Roberts. Representing the City of Hampton Division of Fire and Rescue, Chief David E. Lehman. And representing the City of Hampton Police Division, Chief Thomas H. Townsend. And I ask that you please join in thanking these leaders and their respective divisions and offices for their distinguished service to our community. Thank you, Mayor, for doing this. Military and first responder representatives, again, we thank you for your service. We ask that you now return to your seats. Thank you all. Country singer Alan Jackson wanted to write a song expressing his thoughts and emotions about 9/11, but for many weeks he found it hard to do so. He wrote, "I didn't want to write a patriotic song, and I didn't want to be vengeful either, but I didn't want to forget about how I felt and how I knew other people felt that day." And he went on to say finally he woke at 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning with a melody, opening lines, and a chorus going through his mind, and he captured them, giving us this powerful reminder of that day. Michael?
Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Were you in the yard with your wife and children, working on some stage in LA? Did you stand there in shock at the sight of the black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor? Did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones? Pray for the ones who don't know? Did you rejoice for the people who walked from the rubble? Sob for the ones left below? Did you burst out with pride for the red, white, and blue, and the heroes who died just doing what they do? Did you look up to heaven for some kind of answer? Look at yourself and what really matters. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, but the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Were you teaching a class full of innocent children, or driving down some cold interstate? Did you feel guilty 'cause you're a survivor? In a crowded room, did you feel alone? Did you call up your mother and tell her you loved her? Did you dust off that Bible at home? Did you open your eyes, hope it never happened, close your eyes and not go to sleep? Did you look at the sunset for the first time in ages, or talk to some strangers on the street? Did you lay down at night and think of tomorrow, go out and buy you a gun? Did you turn out that violent old movie you're watching and turn on I Love Lucy reruns? Did you go to a church and hold hands with some strangers, stand in line and give your own blood? Did you just stay at home and cling tight to your families? Thank God you had somebody to love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day?
Michael, thank you very much. We all remember. We are most fortunate to have as our speaker today a young warrior who has been downrange multiple times. First Sergeant Ryan Saddleberg currently serves as First Sergeant of the 149th Seaport Operations Company, which is part of the 10th Transportation Battalion, 7th Sustainment Brigade at Fort Eustis. His awards and decorations include 4 Bronze Stars, the Purple Heart, no less than 14 separate Meritorious Service Awards. This is over a 17-year career. The Combat Action Badge and the Expert Infantryman's Badge. He is also a member of the very prestigious Sergeant Audie Murphy Club for non-commissioned officers and has received the Ancient Order of St. Barbara. He is here today to share with us his story and, more important, his hope for tomorrow. First Sergeant Saddleberg.
Mayor Ward, council members, Brigadier General Wins, Command Sergeant Major Sharp, Command Sergeant Major Reed, members of the Hampton Roads Military Affairs Committee, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and other distinguished guests, Gold Star family members, family and friends, welcome to today's 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony, where we will honor the fallen of this fateful day, as well as our nation's military members who have paid the ultimate sacrifice while supporting our freedoms. Our freedoms that were supported during Operations Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, as well as Operation Iraqi Freedom and New Dawn in Iraq. We also pay tribute to our fallen first responders. I am honored to be here today to share a story of an American's life, before and after the day that will long be remembered as an attack on our way of life. What an opportunity for us today to be sharing our stories and remembering our past. This is an incredible place, as I just heard the story from Mr. Valiant, how this park came to be. It's amazing for those of you who don't know, this is a park of hope. And before you are the trees that have grown over the last 12 years. Under the trees is the burden of our lives, as soil from the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and that Pennsylvania field help to nurture and grow these beauties. And just like life, 11 were planted, but only 8 remain. But these 8 are growing strong, as is the park. And it brings us to the reality of life, that just like our fallen, you and I have our own story. But unlike a storybook, there will not be an ending, because their legacies will live on in dreams, tributes, and memorials. We are unable to control how our story plays out after we are gone, but this is why we must live our life to the fullest, as tomorrow is not guaranteed to any one of us. Now I ask you, how do you want to be remembered when you go? Do you want to be remembered as ordinary or extraordinary? Like every story, you have to have a name, and mine is Saddleberg. And I hold many titles that of father, husband, soldier, and the one I share with you is an American. My story began just over 35 years ago in Mountain Home, Idaho, where I was born to 2 Air Force retirees. And it continues till today in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And I know you're asking yourself, is he going to tell me about his 35 years of life? And the answer is, yes, I am. I think it's important to understand that we are not necessarily the ones writing our story. Our story is impacted daily by events and people. And I want to share with you how my story has evolved over the years. I grew up an Air Force brat, moving from Idaho to New Mexico to Nevada, and finally growing roots outside Holloman Air Force Base in Alamogordo, New Mexico, to my parents, who both retirees, who they were supporters. They were sailors, or they were airmen, and they loved their country. They never pushed the military on me. Their only request that I do something with my life and not allow life to pass me by. Well, I guess I always believed that I would play Major League Baseball. Well, that didn't pan out. I didn't give the military too many thoughts, and while I respected what our military did, I didn't believe that it would be something that I would enjoy doing. And while baseball wasn't in my future, I wasn't so sure about college, so when the Air Force recruiter talked to me during lunch one day, he kind of sparked something inside of me. He was telling me about how great the Air Force was, how well you got paid, the benefits you got, all the travel, and he told me I could jump out of planes. That's pretty interesting for an 18-year-old to think about. So I decided, well, I'll give it a shot. Soon I was taking a physical fitness test for a pararescue career, and I did well, but again, as a kid, I was a bit impatient. So after the test, I decided, I'm not going to do the Air Force, and I went with the Army. The soldier jumping out of the back of the Bradley fighting vehicle won me over, so I enlisted under the delayed enlistment program as an infantryman and reported to Fort Benning, Georgia in July of 1996, where I completed one-station unit training at Fort Benning, and I was subsequently assigned to my first duty station, the Rock in Baumholder, Germany. My first 4 years in the Army flew by, as I lived in Germany and was able to experience things most only dream of. I had traveled all over Europe. I include eating MREs in Bosnia-Herzegovina and sleeping on a mud field at Tirana Air Base in Albania. I also crossed the Sava River and saw the streets of Srebrenica, where some of the cruelest ethnic cleansing took place. Somehow, so far away from home, I was living the American dream, understanding firsthand how we as Americans viewed our America, where we were free to dream, we were free to travel, and to make a living while living free of fear. My 4 years went by way too fast, and soon it was time to come back to the United States and experience my America as an adult for the very first time. Little did I know that my country would be rocked by the biggest act of terrorism in the history soon thereafter. On that fateful morning, I was tasked to run with trainees at Fort Leonard, Missouri. After a nice 4-mile run, I shared 20 minutes of my Army story with the trainees, trying to inspire. I then went home and was met with the inevitable reality that our country had been attacked. While watching the news that morning, initial reports began to come in that a passenger jet had just crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. I was saddened to hear that a plane had crashed into a building, but interested to know the details on how a pilot hit a structure as big as the World Trade Center. As never once did I think, wow, that was the work of terrorists. I mean, this is America. We aren't like those countries where it was commonplace for bombings or attacks. Then the second plane hit the South Tower, and as a naive 24-year-old would think, I simply thought the computers must have gone down that guided our aircraft and took them on a one-way trip to doom. Still a sad event, but nothing could have prepared me for the fact that we were under attack. Our way of life would forever be changed. On this day, like most Americans, we stayed glued to our TV sets throughout the day, and once it was identified that it was a terrorist attack, our world changed forever. What I knew was that we were at war. With whom was unknown. But I knew we wouldn't stand for this, and we would find those responsible and hold them accountable. As the first plane hit the tower, I remember telling my wife at the time, that's not good. How did the pilot not see that big building? Having any other information, I just went on eating when the news crews began showing the smoke coming, and we would see live as that second tower was struck. As the second plane hit, I was shocked, a little sick, and extremely sad. But I still didn't put this together as a terrorist attack, because this could never happen in our America. We had never seen anything like this before. I was feeling for those families when the first indication of a terrorist attack came from the news. And when the third plane struck, my heart sunk. When those news reports came in that the Pentagon was hit, it was frightening. It was scary. And it was a little stressful wondering what had happened and how did my America become a war zone. When the fourth plane went down, this was it. All I could think about was I was no longer in my America. To some degree, I lost hope that I would enjoy a life of freedom and wondered, would I be able to share my passions with my future children? And I think for the first time, I was scared about what the future was to bring. In the coming month, we were in conflict in Afghanistan, looking for the culprits of this attack. They were clever and always seemed to be one step ahead of us. Yet it still felt good to see our military might on display, showing everyone that we wouldn't tolerate this type of indiscriminate killing of our citizens. We would stand shoulder to shoulder and face our adversary, and we would prevail. While we would never be the America of the past, we would be stronger, mightier, and a more focused nation. We would become an example for all others in the world. We stood again. While the pain of that day couldn't be masked, it could be seen as an example of hope. The fallen would continue to be eulogized, and their stories were being told daily. Memorials were being constructed, and we were healing the very best way we knew how.
It's almost 8:46.
Ma'am, stand.
Pardon?
Did they stand?
Well, yes. Peggy, will you man the bell, please? We're coming up on 8:46, and as stated, I apologize for interrupting the first sergeant. We're going to ring the bell 6 times and then have a moment of meditation. Thank you very much. Thank you, First Sergeant.
Okay. The fallen would continue to be eulogized, and their stories were being told daily. Memorials were constructed, and we were healing the best way we knew. Day by day, our life was slowly coming back. But there was still widespread fear. But we were hopeful because we knew we would bring those responsible to justice. Enduring freedom, as it was known, would bring our focus. As a nation at war, our military's courage and competence was shown in daily engagements, and soon our entire army and our entire military will be consumed with combat for a little over a decade. About 18 months later, I found myself standing on point for the nation in Kuwait as part of the eventual invasion force into Iraq. During the 3 months prior to the invasion, I was helping prepare operations in Iraq by moving ammunition, supplies, and equipment to the most northern camps in Kuwait. And I will tell you, as a 24-year-old, not having experienced the art of war, I was ill prepared for what I was about to face. I was scared of the unexpected. Would we run into a well-trained army? I thought to myself. Would they bring the fight to us, or would I die? At the time, the reality that war brings death began to set in, and no matter how much our leaders talked about it, it was hard to fathom, since most of them had never been deployed. Most certainly, they had never seen actual combat. How were they prepared to lead me into a war zone with an enemy that was unknown? I had a lot of questions that would soon be answered. When the call came, we were located in Camp New York, and we were pre-positioned to support the warfighters of the 3rd Infantry Division. The night prior to the movement, you could sense something spectacular was taking place. We were about to be a part of history. We were going to be one of the very first transportation companies to cross the berm into southern Iraq. And let's just say it was nothing like what I had envisioned. There were no people shooting. There was no bombs going off. There were people standing out cheering us on. Some of them with white flags. Most seemed hungry and thirsty. And of course, some of our soldiers were more than happy to throw some food their way. And as we moved through the desert in what seemed like took an eternity, at speeds close to 20 to 25 miles an hour, the true feeling of pride of what I had envisioned became a reality. We were working as one team, working together to move into our base camp south of Tooele Air Force Base at a camp known as Cedar 1. And it took us somewhere around 18 hours to get to this non-existent camp in the middle of the desert. But we were tasked very, very early to get the base camp built. So with pride and precision, the entire team dedicated themselves, and over the next 24 hours, we were able to construct sleep tents, those beautiful outdoor latrines, a motor park, and trailer transfer point. And within the next 48 hours, we began receiving missions to deliver goods of Class 1, Class 3, and Class 5 to forward forces. And over the course of the next 75 days, I was able to see Iraq from a different perspective than was shown on TV. I was amazed whether it was smoking tanks that had been destroyed by our forces, a road that was pulverized by a gunship. You could sense that American forces were going hard. My first experience in a war zone was filled more with lost cargo than anything else. But I would go on to return to Iraq 4 more times over the next 7 years, to include being one of the very last units out of Iraq in December of 2011. I spent a total of 51 months covering a portion of every year from 2003 to 2011 deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was committed, focused, and prepared. I had learned more about combat operations than I did about becoming a father 3 times over. During each deployment, my levels of responsibilities continued to grow, from a team leader in the beginning to closing out Iraq as a company first sergeant. And I was proud of what we had accomplished. During my time deployed, I endured the true hell of war. We lost soldiers, and we lost families. We truly lived through the pain and agony of war. I missed my family something fierce, but I knew I had a responsibility. And I had an opportunity and a duty to forge ahead and make the most of this time. I was helping to build another country. I was helping soldiers. I was helping our country by hopefully bringing some peace and stability to this region. And I grew strides over those years, as did my love for our country. And while it may be hard to imagine why someone would relish the opportunity to deploy every year like most, we will tell you that we did this not for ourselves, but for our brothers in arms, our families, and our country. I jumped at every opportunity to get on the streets and support the warfighter. I had my own sets of challenges, as I had lost friends and comrades in arms, and maybe a little sense of normalcy, but it is said that no matter the challenge, the mission must go on. And why is that important, you might ask? Well, for my foxhole, I think it's important to talk about what we as a country have been through since 9/11, to understand that even if we weren't directly affected by the attacks, at the end of the day, we are all affected by the course that our country was forced to take in the aftermath. I speak from my perspective as to how my life has changed. Others have different stories, and they will still be told for years to come. This is just my story. You see, as my story continues, so does that of the close to 7,000 members of our military who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, including 3 from my battalion who have given their life in the last 60 days. The stories of Staff Sergeant Lawson, Sergeant Johnson, and Sergeant Nuve will live on for years to come, as will their legacies. Our fallen have ranged in ages from 18 to 59, both male and female, spanning every state in our great country. Again, their stories will be told for years to come. What I hope for everyone to understand is the stories and bravery that every one of these young men and women have shown will be a part of our history for years to come. Most of them joined the military after 9/11, so they joined knowing that they would be sent to combat, yet they enlisted, trained, deployed, and took the fight to a merciless group of people and showed extreme, and we should all be extremely proud of them and every service member who has served, is serving, or will serve. We owe our veterans more than just a handshake. We owe them a deep amount of respect and admiration, as we do the brave families that were left behind to care for the home front. For our first responders, we have lost over 130 police officers and firefighters since the 1st of January of 2013. These brave men and women join professions that are inherently dangerous. On a daily basis, they are putting others before themselves, and they are willing to die for their community in order to maintain their own sense of American pride. Our first responders are heroes amongst heroes. They run towards danger when most of us would run away. They enforce laws, protect our rights as citizens, while serving as a moral compass for the communities they serve. Whether teaching dare classes, putting out fires, or just talking to citizens, they are making themselves known, and we must understand that we are unable to maintain our way of life without these brave men and women. And just like soldiers, they deserve more than just a handshake. Thank them. Tell them how much you appreciate them for their service to your community, and let them know you care. I would like to close with one request for each of you, and that is for you to provide hope to others. The hope of a brighter future is clear, and no matter where we as a country or community move towards, we must make it our responsibility to remember that our freedoms come with a price, and that price is great. No one single individual should carry this burden alone. All Americans should carry some of this burden. Whether you're supporting your local police officer, firefighter, or service member, understand that you are an integral part of maintaining our freedoms that we cherish so deeply. We will stand tall and let the world know that even 12 years later, our hearts may be heavy, but our pulse is rapid, and we will not stand for another strike against our country and our way of life. We have 2 ways to accomplish this, and again, we go back to you can be ordinary or extraordinary. And I guess I would like to think that every person has the ability to be extraordinary. So be that extraordinary person. Give more of yourself today than yesterday, and even more tomorrow. Don't allow the sacrifices that have been made over the last 12 years to go in vain. And all of us are counting on every one of us to help carry the weight of our free country. As the sun sets this evening, don't allow this day to be defined by sadness, but as a day to reflect the yesterday, today, tomorrow, and our future is in every one of our hands. And I have no doubt that we are all up to the challenge. God bless America.
Thank you, First Sergeant Saddleberg. We truly appreciate the perspective of one who has been there on the ground. We thank you and your family for your service to our nation. At this time, I would like to encourage the detachment commanders back here, if you wish, give your troops a little more looseness. It's getting kind of sticky, but that's your call. All right? Just relax a little. I got told by one of our veterans that we better give the troops a break. Today we do recognize the sacrifice of Hampton Roads heroes who have given their lives serving our nation in war since 2001. We remember their sacrifice for us, and we pray continually for their brothers and sisters in arms. Their names, our local heroes, are documented in that insert in your program. And the last three soldiers on that list are those that the First Sergeant just spoke of. Staff Sergeant Justin R. Johnson, Staff Sergeant Eric T. Lawson, and Sergeant Karen Arnouve, of whom he was most complimentary. These local heroes and all others who made the ultimate sacrifice since 9/11 rest in honored glory. Their spouses, parents, children, and families live with their memories and the void in their lives. We honor the families of our fallen heroes and are blessed by your presence this morning. I'm going to ask now, and I can't see it too well into the sun, but if you are a family member of one whom we remember and honor today, please rise so that we may recognize your sacrifice. There again, if you're a Gold Star mother or a family of someone who has given their life for our country. At this time, Brigadier General Wins is paying respect to the families of the fallen, and Pete Fairchild is going to present each a Military Affairs Committee coin, and Peggy Merch will present each with a rose. I think we've covered everybody. Thank you, General Wins. To each of you, our heartfelt thanks, and we remember your sacrifice. We ask now that you please be seated. Thank you again. On the hallowed ground of Arlington National Cemetery, an inscription on the tomb of the unknowns reads, "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." Like the unknowns, the men and women whose memory we honor today did not seek nor serve in uniform expecting honor, but we do honor them today, because in doing so and reflecting on their sacrifice, perhaps we ourselves and those around us are ennobled, reflecting upon the memory of ordinary men and women who did extraordinary things on behalf of their country and out of love for those with whom they proudly serve. As we close this observance today, let us also remember and support those who continue to serve, like the soldiers and all behind me, and especially those downrange in harm's way. The love of their families and their countrymen is vital to them. I'm going to ask Chaplain West if he'll come back and have our benediction.
Gracious Lord, as we are gathered here today to remember 12 years ago, the events that changed our outlook and our country and the world, we thank you for those who are here today to remember and to cling to that hope. Father, our hearts are pulled to the past, but also our hearts are here today with those who are present who have lost loved ones in the continued fight for freedom. And our hearts are also concerned about the possibilities of conflict that comes before us in the future. Help us to remember through all these things, Lord, that your goodness is stronger than evil. Your love is stronger than hate. Your light is stronger than darkness, and that life in you is stronger than death. Continue to keep your hand upon America. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. In a moment, we will have a rifle salute and the playing of taps in honor of the fallen, and then followed by a special rendition of Amazing Grace. Taps is for those who have known their duty and done it, for those who have sacrificed for their country with honor, for those who have loved their country and served it well. Taps is the music of the service member's soul. I ask that you please rise now for the rifle salute and the playing of taps, and then we'll have Amazing Grace. For active and retired military, remembered courtesies during the rifle salute and playing of taps are appropriate.